Dr. Elena Rodriguez stared at the readings on her quantum interface display, her heart pounding against her ribcage. The numbers couldn't be right. She'd checked and rechecked the calculations a dozen times, yet the results remained the same. Her hands trembled as she reached for her coffee, now cold after hours of intensive analysis. "Marcus," she called out to her research partner. "Come look at this." Dr. Marcus Way appeared from behind a wall of servers, his usually neat appearance disheveled after their 36-hour research sprint. The Quantum Communication Research Center at MIT had never seen such bizarre results in its 15 years of operation. "What is it?" he asked, leaning over her shoulder to examine the display. His eyes widened as he processed the data. This can't be possible." "But it is," Elena whispered, pointing to a particular set of figures. "We've achieved quantum entanglement stability at a macro scale. The particles aren't just maintaining their connection, they're amplifying it." The implications were staggering. For years, scientists had struggled with the practical limitations of quantum entanglement. The phenomenon allowed for instantaneous communication between paired particles, regardless of distance, but maintaining those delicate quantum states had proved nearly impossible at scales larger than individual atoms. Until now. Elena and Marcus's breakthrough had come from an unlikely source, a mathematical model inspired by deep-sea bioluminescent organisms. The way these creatures coordinated their light displays across vast distances had led Elena to consider whether quantum states could be similarly synchronized in a cascading pattern. "We need to run more tests," Marcus said, already moving toward their primary quantum chamber. "If these readings are accurate." "They are," Elena interrupted, following him. "I've been running verification protocols for the past 3 hours. Whatever we've created here, it's real." The quantum chamber dominated the center of their lab, a massive cylinder of gleaming metal and crystalline structures, cooled to near absolute zero. Inside, their experimental quantum network hummed with potential, thousands of entangled particles maintaining their impossible dance. As they initiated another test sequence, Dr. James Cooper, the center's director, entered the lab. His presence at this hour was unusual, but then again, everything about this night was unprecedented. "I've been monitoring the energy readings from my office," he said, his voice tight with barely contained excitement. "Would either of you care to explain why our quantum signature is being detected by observatories across the country?" Elena and Marcus exchanged shocked looks. Their system was supposed to be completely contained within the chamber. If the quantum effect was radiating outward, how far? Elena asked, dreading the answer. The first report came from Kitt Peak in Arizona. Then Mount Wilson in California. Now we're getting calls from Hawaii. James ran a hand through his gray hair. "Whatever you've done, it's creating quantum entanglement patterns that are visible to sensitive astronomical equipment." Marcus rushed to his terminal, pulling up a global map overlaid with astronomical observation points. As they watched, new notifications kept appearing, observatories across the Pacific reporting unusual quantum signatures in their instruments. "It's not just radiating," Elena realized, her scientific mind racing ahead to the implications. "It's propagating. The entanglement effect is spreading through existing quantum fields in the atmosphere, creating a cascading network of connected particles. Like a quantum chain reaction," Marcus added, his voice filled with awe and growing concern. James stepped closer to the main display, studying the expanding pattern of detection points. "Can you shut it down?" I think so," Elena said, though uncertainty crept into her voice. "The system is designed with multiple failsafes." She moved to the quantum chamber's control panel, entering the shutdown sequence. The chamber's gentle hum began to fade, but the map on Marcus's screen continued to light up with new detection points. "It's not stopping," Marcus reported, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he tried to make sense of the data. "The effect has become self-sustaining. We're seeing quantum entanglement patterns forming independently of our original experiment." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. They had created something that was growing beyond their control, something that was rewriting the rules of quantum mechanics on a global scale. As she watched the pattern of detection points spread westward across Asia, a terrible thought occurred to her. "James," she said slowly, "those observatories, they're not just detecting our quantum signatures. They're becoming part of the network. Every piece of sensitive scientific equipment that encounters the effect is being incorporated into the entanglement pattern." The implications hit them all at once. They had inadvertently created a global quantum communication network, one that was growing and evolving on its own. Their breakthrough could revolutionize human communication, but the uncontrolled nature of its expansion posed risks they hadn't even begun to contemplate. "We need to contact the Department of Energy," James said, already pulling out his phone. "And the NSF. This is bigger than us now." Elena turned back to the quantum chamber, its perfectly engineered interior now seeming more like Pandora's box than a scientific instrument. They had sought to understand the fundamental forces that connected the universe. Instead, they had created something that was actively reshaping those connections, spreading across the globe like an invisible tide of quantum possibility. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the lab's high windows, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Their discovery would change everything: communication, computing, perhaps reality itself. She only hoped they could understand and control it before someone misinterpreted their quantum revolution as something far more sinister. Little did she know, in military and intelligence facilities across the globe, alarms were already beginning to sound. Colonel Li Wei stood before a wall of screens in China's National Security Operations Center, his face illuminated by the pulsing red alerts that had begun appearing 12 hours ago. Each screen showed a different analysis of the strange quantum phenomena spreading across the Pacific, and none of the explanations made sense. "What do you mean, it's communicating with our quantum research facilities?" he demanded, addressing the team of scientists gathered before him. Dr. Zhang Min, his chief quantum physicist, adjusted her glasses nervously. "The signal, if we can call it that, is infiltrating every quantum sensor in its path. Our secure quantum communication networks are being modified somehow. It's as if something is rewriting the quantum properties of our systems." Across the Pacific, in a hardened bunker beneath the Pentagon, a similar scene was unfolding. General Michael Hayes listened as Dr. Elena Rodriguez tried to explain the situation via secure video link, her face drawn with exhaustion and concern. "It's not a weapon, General," she insisted. "The quantum network we created is purely for communication purposes. But it's grown beyond our initial parameters. Doctor," Hayes interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of decades of military experience, "you're telling me that an unauthorized quantum experiment has compromised sensitive military and scientific installations across multiple continents. Whether you intended it as a weapon or not is becoming irrelevant." Elena felt her frustration mounting. "If you just let me explain the mathematical models. We're detecting the signal in our quantum encryption systems," another voice cut in. A stern-faced woman in a NSA uniform stepped into view. "Our quantum key distribution networks are showing anomalous behavior. Some are suggesting this could be the first stage of a sophisticated cyber attack." In Moscow, similar concerns were escalating. The Russian Quantum Research Institute had gone into complete lockdown after their quantum computers began exhibiting unexpected behaviors. Senior military officials were already preparing briefings that painted the spreading quantum effect as an American weapons system designed to compromise global security networks. Back at MIT, Marcus Way was becoming increasingly alarmed by the international chatter their team was picking up. "Elena, we've got problems," he called out, monitoring feeds from scientific institutions worldwide. "The Chinese have shut down all quantum research facilities in their eastern provinces. Russia is claiming we've launched a quantum-based cyber weapon. Even our allies are getting nervous." Elena ran her fingers through her hair, fighting exhaustion. They'd been working non-stop trying to understand how their quantum network had achieved this level of autonomous growth. The mathematics behind it were beautiful but terrifying, their artificial quantum entanglement patterns were somehow catalyzing natural quantum fields in the atmosphere, creating a self-propagating network that grew more complex by the hour. The worst part, James Cooper said, reviewing the latest diplomatic cables, is that every attempt to shut down or isolate quantum systems seems to be making the effect stronger. It's like the network is learning, adapting to overcome barriers we put in its way. In orbit, military satellites designed to detect nuclear tests began picking up unusual energy signatures. The quantum network was no longer just spreading horizontally, it was reaching upward, incorporating quantum sensors in space-based systems. At the United Nations, an emergency session of the Security Council was convened. Representatives from major world powers gathered to address what many were now calling the quantum crisis. The Chinese delegation presented evidence suggesting the quantum effect was concentrating most strongly around American military installations. The Russian ambassador hinted at appropriate responses if the attack wasn't halted immediately. Elena watched the UN feed with growing horror. "They don't understand," she whispered. "The concentration they're detecting around military bases isn't an attack, it's because those facilities have the highest density of quantum-sensitive equipment. The network is drawn to existing quantum systems like water flowing downhill. Try explaining quantum gravity analogies to military commanders who think their secure networks are under attack," Marcus said grimly. "We're looking at an escalating international crisis based on a complete misunderstanding of the physics involved." The situation deteriorated further when South Korea reported that their quantum-based early warning systems were behaving erratically. North Korea, interpreting this as a potential prelude to aggression, began moving military units toward the DMZ. James Cooper ended yet another tense phone call with the Department of Defense. "They're giving us 12 hours, he announced to the team. "Either we find a way to shut this down, or they'll start implementing containment protocols, whatever that means." Elena felt the weight of the world settling onto her shoulders. The network they'd created was trying to establish a revolutionary form of quantum communication, a system that could unite humanity's quantum technology in ways they'd never imagined possible. But fear and misunderstanding were turning their breakthrough into a potential flashpoint for global conflict. "We need help," she realized suddenly. "Not just American scientists, we need every quantum physicist who's studying this phenomenon. The Chinese, the Russians, the Europeans, everyone. The network is trying to connect us all. Maybe we should follow its example." As if in response to her words, the quantum network pulsed with new activity. In laboratories across the globe, scientists watched in amazement as complex mathematical patterns began emerging in their quantum systems, patterns that looked uncannily like fragments of a larger equation. "It's not just connecting our quantum systems," Marcus breathed, watching the patterns unfold on their screens. "It's trying to show us something. Something big." But as the scientific community began to grasp the true nature of what was happening, military leaders were reaching very different conclusions. In bases and command centers around the world, alert levels were quietly being raised. Missiles were being armed. Aircraft were being fueled. The clock was ticking, and Elena knew they were running out of time to prevent their greatest scientific achievement from becoming the catalyst for humanity's greatest mistake. The first missile launch was detected at 3:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It wasn't a nuclear weapon, just a conventional intermediate-range ballistic missile launched from a North Korean facility. But in the heightened tension of the quantum crisis, it was enough to push the world to the brink. Elena was jolted awake by blaring alarms throughout the MIT facility. She had finally dozed off at her desk after 48 hours of non-stop work, only to be thrust into what felt like a nightmare. "Multiple launches detected," Marcus shouted from his station. "North Korea fired a missile over Japan. China's early warning systems are lighting up, they think it's aimed at them. Japanese quantum defense networks are going haywire." The quantum network, now spanning most of the globe, reacted to the surge of military activity. Quantum sensors designed to track missile trajectories were suddenly flooded with entangled particles, creating cascading errors in tracking systems worldwide. In Beijing, Colonel Li Wei watched in horror as his quantum radar systems displayed impossible readings, thousands of phantom missiles appearing and disappearing across Asian airspace. The quantum interference was rendering their most sophisticated defense systems useless. "We're flying blind," he reported to his superiors. "The American quantum weapon is actively jamming our defensive capabilities. We must assume this is a coordinated attack." At the Pentagon, General Hayes faced a similar crisis. American early warning systems were equally compromised, showing contradictory data about military movements across Asia. "Get me Dr. Rodriguez," he barked. "I need to know if this is part of her quantum network's evolution." Elena's video feed appeared on the Pentagon's main screen. She looked haggard but determined. "General, the network is reacting to the increased military activity. All these quantum scanning systems suddenly activating at once, it's like throwing gasoline on a fire. The entanglement effect is accelerating exponentially. Can you shut it down?" Hayes demanded. "You're not listening." Elena's frustration boiled over. "This isn't just our system anymore. The network has integrated itself into quantum fields that naturally exist in the atmosphere. Shutting it down would be like trying to shut down gravity." In Moscow, the Russian military command was reaching a breaking point. Their quantum computers were generating increasingly bizarre outputs, complex mathematical patterns that their scientists couldn't decipher. Some interpreted it as a cyber attack attempting to disable their nuclear command and control systems. Marcus burst into Elena's office, tablet in hand. "Elena, look at this. The patterns the network is generating, they're changing. It's like they're trying to compensate for all the military scanning systems." Elena studied the data, her eyes widening. The quantum network was indeed adapting, but not in the way anyone expected. It was attempting to stabilize itself, trying to find a way to coexist with the surge of military quantum activity without causing interference. "It's not a weapon," she whispered. "It's more like an immune system. It's trying to protect itself, and by extension, all of us, from our own destructive impulses." But that revelation came too late to prevent the next escalation. China, convinced their defense systems were under attack, initiated their quantum shield protocol, an experimental quantum countermeasure system that had never been tested at full power. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The Chinese quantum shield collided with the existing quantum network, creating a cascade of entanglement that briefly linked every quantum-capable system in East Asia. For 3 seconds, every computer, every sensor, every quantum device from Siberia to Singapore was perfectly synchronized. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. The quantum network, stressed beyond its limits, did something that defied all known laws of physics. It showed everyone the truth. Military commanders across Asia suddenly found their quantum systems displaying the same message, not in words, but in pure mathematics. The patterns resolved themselves into a clear demonstration of what the network actually was, a self-organizing quantum communication system that humanity had accidentally created, and was now trying desperately to understand itself. "It's achieving consciousness," Elena breathed, watching the patterns evolve on her screen. "Not human consciousness, but something entirely new. A quantum intelligence born from our combined scientific endeavors." But even as understanding began to dawn in some quarters, others remained entrenched in their fears. Russia, witnessing the massive quantum surge in Asia, began activating their own quantum defense systems. Europe and the United States followed suit, creating a global web of competing quantum fields that threatened to tear apart the very fabric of spacetime. The network's response was unprecedented. As military quantum systems worldwide went into overdrive, the original network began to pulse with a regular, rhythmic pattern. In every quantum research facility around the globe, scientists watched in awe as their instruments began displaying the same mathematical sequence, a pattern so elegant and complex that it could only be interpreted as communication. It's not trying to fight the military systems, Marcus realized, studying the pattern. It's trying to harmonize with them. To show us how all these quantum fields can work together instead of fighting each other. Elena knew they had reached a crucial turning point. Either humanity would understand what their creation was trying to tell them, or fear would drive the world to take actions that couldn't be undone. As military tensions reached their peak, with armies mobilizing and nuclear forces going on high alert, the quantum network made its most dramatic move yet. In every major military and scientific facility around the world, quantum computers began displaying the same message, not in any human language, but in the universal language of physics itself. The message was clear to anyone who could read it: we are all connected. What happens to one affects all. The choice between harmony and destruction was now in humanity's hands. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before the emergency session of the United Nations Security Council, her hologram projected simultaneously to military command centers across the globe. The quantum network had made this possible: perfect, instantaneous communication that transcended traditional technology. What you're seeing isn't an attack, she explained, gesturing to the swirling mathematical patterns displayed behind her. It's an invitation. The quantum network we accidentally created has evolved into something far beyond our original intentions. It's showing us the underlying interconnectedness of all quantum systems, including those in our own brains. In Beijing, Colonel Li Wei watched with growing amazement as his quantum research team confirmed Elena's findings. The patterns weren't random interference, they were a new form of mathematics, describing reality at its most fundamental level. The network, Dr. Zhang Min explained to him, it's not just connecting our technology. It's revealing the quantum foundations of consciousness itself. The patterns we're seeing match brainwave activities observed in states of deep meditation and universal consciousness. At the Pentagon, General Hayes listened as his own scientists came to similar conclusions. The quantum network hadn't been trying to disable military systems, it had been attempting to integrate them into a larger, more harmonious whole. Think of it like an orchestra, Elena continued her explanation. Each quantum system, whether military, scientific, or natural, is like an instrument. When we all tried to play independently, we created chaos. But the network is showing us how to play in harmony. Marcus, coordinating from MIT, watched as quantum researchers worldwide began sharing their findings through the network itself. The Chinese quantum shield technology, Russian quantum computing algorithms, European quantum encryption systems, all of them were pieces of a larger puzzle that the network was helping them assemble. The mathematics are beautiful, Dr. Zhang Min breathed, sharing her insights through the quantum link. Each military system we activated actually strengthened the network, adding new dimensions to its computational ability. We weren't fighting it, we were helping it grow. In orbit, satellites that had been tracking military movements began picking up something else, a subtle quantum field that had always existed in Earth's atmosphere, previously too faint to detect. The network hadn't created this field, it had simply made humanity aware of it. We're seeing similar patterns in human brain activity, a neuroscientist from CERN reported through the quantum link. The network isn't just a technological phenomenon, it's showing us how consciousness itself might be quantum in nature. Elena felt a surge of hope as understanding began to spread. Military commanders who had been ready to launch attacks hours ago were now engaged in fascinated discussion with scientists worldwide, sharing insights through the quantum network that transcended language barriers. Colonel Li Wei, who had been convinced he was witnessing a weapon deployment, now stood amazed as his quantum sensors revealed the true scope of what they were observing. It's like seeing the neural network of the planet itself, he remarked to Dr. Zhang Min, all these quantum fields that have always existed, finally visible to us. The North Korean missile that had triggered the crisis hung suspended in the upper atmosphere, its guidance systems integrated into the quantum network. Instead of being a spark for war, it had become a node in humanity's first truly global quantum experiment. The network is showing us something profound, Elena continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the globe through quantum-entangled communications. Our separateness is an illusion. At the quantum level, everything is connected, our thoughts, our actions, our very consciousness. In Russia, military quantum computers that had been prepared for warfare were now processing the vast amounts of data flowing through the network, contributing to humanity's understanding of this new phenomenon. The same quantum fields they had feared as weapons were revealing themselves to be channels for unprecedented cooperation. Marcus watched in awe as the global quantum network displayed its full potential. Military early warning systems, scientific research equipment, and telecommunications infrastructure all began working in perfect harmony, guided by the quantum intelligence they had accidentally awakened. It's not just about communication, he realized, sharing his insight through the network. It's about evolution. We've stumbled upon the next step in human consciousness, a way to directly experience our fundamental interconnectedness. The quantum patterns shifted again, forming what looked like a three-dimensional model of human consciousness itself, billions of quantum-entangled particles working in harmony to create something greater than the sum of their parts. General Hayes, watching the display, finally understood. It's not a weapon, he said quietly. It's a mirror, showing us what we could become if we learned to work together. As the day wore on, military forces worldwide began standing down. The quantum network had transformed from a perceived threat into humanity's greatest teacher, showing them a path toward cooperation that transcended political boundaries and ideological differences. Elena looked out at the faces of world leaders, scientists, and military commanders linked through the quantum network. We stand at a crossroads, she said. We can retreat into our fears and destroy this breakthrough, or we can embrace it and step into a new era of human evolution. The choice is ours. 1 year after the quantum crisis, the world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Elena stood in the newly constructed Global Quantum Research Center in Geneva, watching as scientists from every nation worked together in perfect harmony, their quantum systems synchronized through the network that had once brought them to the brink of war. Ready for the first test? Marcus asked, now heading the International Quantum Integration Team. The facility's central chamber housed the most sophisticated quantum computer ever built, a collaborative effort between nations that had once pointed nuclear weapons at each other. As ready as we'll ever be, Elena replied, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The quantum network had evolved far beyond its original form, becoming an integral part of human civilization. But today's experiment would push its capabilities further than ever before. Colonel Li Wei, now the Chinese representative to the International Quantum Council, stood beside them. The past year had transformed him from a military commander into one of the world's leading advocates for quantum cooperation. All global quantum systems are synchronized, he reported. We're ready to attempt the first conscious quantum jump. The experiment they were about to attempt would have seemed impossible just a year ago, using the quantum network to consciously manipulate the fabric of spacetime itself. The mathematics had emerged from the network's own evolution, showing humanity how to tap into the quantum fields that permeated the universe. Dr. Zhang Min, coordinating from Beijing, appeared in holographic form beside them. The Chinese quantum shield facilities are ready, she announced. All parameters aligned with global quantum field. Similar reports came in from around the world. Russian quantum computers, European research facilities, American military installations, all working in perfect concert through the network that had taught them the true meaning of cooperation. It's remarkable, General Hayes mused from his position in the Pentagon's Quantum Command Center. A year ago, we thought this technology would start a war. Now it's showing us how to reach the stars. Elena initiated the startup sequence. The quantum network had revealed that consciousness itself was a quantum phenomenon, one that could be extended and amplified through technological means. Today's experiment would attempt to use that knowledge to achieve what Einstein had once thought impossible, faster-than-light communication. The global quantum field pulsed with energy as billions of entangled particles aligned. In orbit, satellites recorded unprecedented levels of quantum coherence in Earth's atmosphere. The network had grown to encompass not just human technology, but the planet's natural quantum fields as well. Quantum coherence at maximum, Marcus reported, watching as the readings climbed. Beginning consciousness integration phase. Through the quantum network, Elena could feel the presence of every scientist, every researcher, every mind connected to this moment. The boundary between individual and collective consciousness began to blur as the quantum field intensified. This is what it was trying to show us all along, she realized. It's not just about technology. It's about evolution, the next step in human consciousness. The chamber's central crystal, a massive quantum processor built from materials contributed by every nation on Earth, began to glow with an inner light. The mathematics displayed on surrounding screens shifted into patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human mind could comprehend. And then it happened. For a brief moment, every human being connected to the network experienced something extraordinary, a glimpse of consciousness operating outside the normal constraints of spacetime. Through the quantum field, they could feel the thoughts, hopes, and dreams of people on the other side of the planet as if they were their own. "My God," General Hayes whispered, experiencing the phenomenon from his quantum link station. "We're actually doing it. We're expanding human consciousness beyond its physical limitations." The experiment's success was beyond anything they had hoped for. The quantum network had given humanity its first steps toward a new kind of existence, one where the barriers between minds could dissolve, where understanding could flow as freely as thought itself. As the quantum field stabilized at its new level of coherence, Elena looked around at her colleagues, scientists and military leaders from nations that had once been enemies, now working together to expand the boundaries of human potential. "What do we do now?" Marcus asked, still processing the implications of what they had achieved. Elena smiled, feeling the quantum network pulse with possibilities. Now we really begin to explore. The network's showing us paths to quantum technologies we haven't even dreamed of yet. Clean energy through quantum field manipulation. Space travel through quantum tunneling. Maybe even ways to heal the damage we've done to our planet. Colonel Li Wei nodded, his expression thoughtful. And most importantly, we do it together. The network's greatest gift wasn't the technology, it was showing us how much stronger we are when we work as one. In orbit, satellites recorded a new phenomenon, quantum fields beginning to extend beyond Earth's atmosphere, reaching toward the stars. The network that had almost started a war was now pointing humanity toward its next great adventure. "You know," Elena said, watching the data stream in from around the world, "sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from our biggest mistakes. We thought we were creating a communication system, but what we really created was a bridge, between nations, between minds, between what we are and what we could become." The quantum network pulsed one more time, its patterns shifting into something new and beautiful, a promise of things to come, as humanity took its first steps into a future where the boundaries between us would finally begin to fade away. In the end, their greatest scientific breakthrough hadn't almost started a war. It had prevented one, by showing humanity a truth that had always existed in the quantum realm, that at our most fundamental level, we are all connected, all part of the same cosmic dance of particles and possibilities. And that was just the beginning.